Hi everyone, Helen here from A Little Lime. Welcome. Today I want to show you a background technique for your colouring pages that I find really quick and easy to do. I've used it on this page in my Camilla D'Errico colouring book. So I've just got a piece of scrap paper here to demonstrate and a piece of Glad wrap that is well and truly big enough to be able to scrunch up over that piece of paper. I'm going to do it in a couple of mediums, but first of all, this is watercolor. They're just basic watercolors in a series of blues and also a shimmery color. So you want to have them all mixed up in advance. I've got my very fancy water jar, and I'm going to use a large enough brush to be able to paint quickly over the area because it is important to work quickly. I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to work in the light blue. You need enough paint to be able to do the whole thing in one go. You don't want it drying out. And then I'm quickly going to brush on my paint. Generally I go a bit lighter at the top. Bring in some of the other colours. That one's a little dark, so I'm just going to lighten that down a bit. A bit of darker blue in here. Really dark. Just down here. You can also add more water if you want to lighten the colours. Just make sure everything stays fairly wet. That's important. And we might go a little bit more of that blue up there. Okay, and then I'm just going to come in with my shimmery colour and add it. You could even splatter it a bit. I just want to add it a little bit so that I'm getting a little bit of it all over the piece. Then I'm going to come in with my piece of plastic film, and I really want it to be scrunched up and also covering the whole area. Okay, I'm now going to let that dry and we'll come back and take a look when it's a little bit dry. It doesn't have to be completely dry, just enough so that the paint doesn't continue to move when you remove the wrap. All right, let's take a look at the final results. I'm removing the plastic while the paper is still damp, but the paint is dry enough that it's not going to move. It looks good. This is the effect that I used on my page, and I really like that it looks like water, and you can see the little bit of shimmer throughout the colour as well. Okay, now we'll have a go with a different medium. This is the Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolour paints. These are a little bit thicker, so you will need to water them down a little bit more than if you were using watercolours. So I've gone with a range of colours. I have contaminated that sort of blossom pink a little bit with the green, so that's probably going to be a bit muddy on the page, but we'll just add it in and see how it turns out. The colours do tend to mix a bit anyway when you add your Glad wrap, so it shouldn't be a big deal. I just generally try and get a pleasing distribution of the colours across the page. My general rule is to use darker colours more sparingly. Okay, we've got enough coverage here, I think. We'll put on the Glad wrap. My Glad wrap's a little small for this one, but that's okay. It should be good enough. And we'll put that aside to dry and see how it turns out. Okay, still a little damp as before. This is a really nice soft finish. If it was still too soft for you, you could try another layer, but you would lose the effect of some of those lines. I'm going to try this now with acrylic paint. So this is just an old tube of Jo Sonja's Rich Gold that I've got. I'm going to really water down my acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is much thicker, of course. I've continued to add a bit more water here to create a nice loose mix. You can go thicker, but you might lose some of the veining effect that you get from having the thin mix and lifting it up and seeing those veins from the Glad wrap folds. Okay, this looks good. I'm just going to brush it off in any direction. And again, if this was thicker, I might need to be a bit more conscious about the direction of my brush strokes. A thicker paint will actually leave those brush strokes in even when you put the Glad wrap on. So just something to be conscious about. Right, I've got full coverage here. Time for the Glad wrap. My Glad wrap, probably due to the width of this paper, I don't think it's going to be quite wide enough to go over the whole thing. I'm going to scrunch it up a bit. Just pat it down. As this is a thicker paint, I can remove the Glad wrap a bit earlier. And what this will enable me to do is to scrunch up the Glad wrap and just fix any areas that I think either need a bit more texture or the areas that I missed Glad wrap coverage. This is the finished result once it's dry, and I've got a light on so that you can see that effect. How amazing would it look on a dark background with some jewel tones? I think it would just be absolutely wonderful. I love it. I want to show you a bit of a different technique for this one. I'm applying the colours in exactly the same way. These colours are from the Daniel Smith Jean Haines Artists Collection, designed for florals, really lovely. I've watered them down a little bit too much, so I'm going to be adding a little bit of colour directly from the palette as well. What I want to show you next is that you don't need to be limited to the plastic wrap to create the technique, that you can expand this idea out to experiment with other textures as well. Just, you know, I suppose it's just to say don't feel limited. So for this one, we're going to be using baking paper. And I'm just going to scrunch it up first so it's nice and wrinkly, press it onto the page really firmly. You know, this is what I love about trying out techniques is, you know, don't be afraid to experiment. If you don't have the right thing, just grab something that you think might work and see what happens. Okay, let's take a little peek. I like the look of that. I'm just going to press down a little bit more and let's have a look. I like it. There's no veining, but I really like the texture that it's created. Here it is mostly dry, and you can see that it's a really nice soft finish. I think this would look fantastic as a floral background. That's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I really love sharing these techniques with you, and I hope that you might consider liking or subscribing or both. See you next time. Bye.